What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Mack, and I'm back. Welcome to another episode of Your Plan is in High Demand. I want to start off by saying to my listeners, thank you for tuning in, whether you're family, friend, or enemy. Thank you as well. I appreciate your time. Hit that subscribe button if you like what you're hearing. I got plenty more stories ahead. Now, with that said, the previous journey we took in my last episode gave us a story about the Hart family and the nighttime abduction of their 21-year-old daughter. Unfortunately, the daughter was found unalive in a gas station bathroom, only approximately 2 miles from her family home. The daughter, who was supposedly this wonderful, awesome student, she was a bully and a leader with her best friends. They tortured and abducted her from elementary school all the way until his family moved away by the end of his freshman year of high school. I mean, it got so bad that they had to move. They just had to get out of the way. And what ended up happening in the end, the abductor chose to take her life because he believed she ruined his life. So he took her life without remorse for her or her family, and then dared to send the mom a message to say, I apologize for what I've done, but she didn't deserve to live, so I took her life physically. But you and your family are safe now, and you'll never hear from me again. That's some amazing stuff to have to hear. Now we're going to go move forward to a journey that features the Butler family. The Butler family has 35-year-old dad, 33-year-old mom, 10-year-old son number 1, 8-year-old son number 2, and 6-year-old daughter. Now, they live in a small, single-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home near the projects, but over on the south side of Chicago. They're not exactly completely in the projects, but just pretty much next to it. It's not a great area to live in, but they make it work because they have a strict family plan that dad and mom put into action. Now, for the family, dad works for the sanitation department. Mom, she's a hairdresser at the salon just downtown. And all 3 children at this point attend the same schools just a few miles away from the family home. Now, dad typically is off to work by 4:30 a.m., and while mom gets in around 9 a.m. for work. But mom makes sure the kids are taken to school daily, and dad, because he's off by 1:30 in the afternoon, he picks them up every day. If there's an off day for the kids, parent teacher, something like that, or something going on where the kids are going to be off, holidays, that type of thing, and mom and dad are both working, or one or the other working, the kids are taken care of by mom's mother. And she just lives on the other side of town, only about 25-30 minutes away, in a much more stable and nicer neighborhood. Now, the Butlers, they encountered the first and only break-in just over a year ago, but the family was away, and only minor damage was suffered to the home because neighbors saw someone trying to break in, and they immediately contacted the police, who got there in a very timely manner. Outside of that particular break-in, they haven't run into any significant troubles despite where they live. So, they're accustomed to hearing it. The kids are at ages, and mom and dad, they're used to hearing police sirens and medical emergency sirens going off on a regular, daily, and nightly basis. They're also quite used to hearing shots fired from different neighborhoods not too far away from where they live. So mom and dad's plan is over the next 2 years to eventually get out of that area, save enough money to move to a much safer area. But the family knows for now it's a pretty stretch, and they got to work hard to maintain a safe and secure life as much as possible until they can move. Now, dad does make a pretty decent wage as a sanitary worker. So, he took out a loan, and what he did to improve the home, he had cast iron bars placed over the windows and in the bedrooms and the living room. He also had the front and back doors replaced with stronger doors and added deadbolt locking capability to those doors. And he couldn't afford cameras and alarm system. So he did the most affordable way and installed these nice, inexpensive, high security lights on the front and back corners of the house so that when someone pulled up or came over onto the porch or got close to the house, those lights would come on and alert them. Now, the family also had a very powerful family German Shepherd, and that was another secure line of defense. When people hear dogs, it's beware time. And the dog was always on defense, especially when there was a knock at the door or someone pulling up in the driveway. Now, we know that the Butlers do not live in the best area, but they have a daily plan, and it actually works to keep the family safe and secure as possible. Now, with that said, let's talk about what happened as far as this Butler family tragedy. A daylight abduction took place. Now, Mom, she works just a couple of hours later than normal on one particular day, but nothing to be alarmed about. She does this and has done it many times before just to make extra cash. Now, she's usually off by 5:30, but on this particular day, on a Wednesday afternoon, she's going to work until approximately 7 to 7:30 p.m. Now, the plan is to work till 7, so Dad and the family expects her to be home somewhere between 7:15 to 7:30 p.m. Now, Dad's plan is that he always waits on the front porch to greet Mom, and that's a normal family safety precaution, just to make sure she gets in, especially if it's going to be nightfall. Now, however, it is now 7:50 p.m., and Mom is not home, and she has not called. Now, Dad figured, okay, she may be working a little longer, so I'll give her some time. So he waits until approximately 8 p.m., and still no answer, no call, no nothing from Mom. So he's in a little bit of a panic, and he contacts the hair salon. But the manager there told Dad that she left just before 7 p.m. So now at this point, Dad and the kids, okay, something's not right here. Something's not right. And so Dad contacts the police immediately. The police arrive at the home at approximately 8:30 p.m. and then they do the questions and the surveillance and the forensic stuff that they need to do to secure the scene because there may be a possible abduction. They ask Dad about possible locations that Mom might go after working hours that she might visit, and they ask the hard questions, is she with someone that she normally hangs out with from work or a friend, you think, or she just decided she was going to go out for the night and maybe she forgot to call, but Dad is convinced that there's something wrong. So, in the police, because they know about her history based on what Dad has told her, they are pretty sure that there's more to this and something could be really wrong. In the family, what they do not do is during the weekdays, unless they do it together, they come home because they're on a budget. So they don't do a lot of going out. They may go out every few weeks on a weekday, but typically when they go somewhere, they do it on a weekend, and they do everything pretty much as a family. So, the police, they do what they do, getting photos and the information that they need from Dad, and then they put the resources into action so that they can see if they can figure out where Mom could be. Now, as we all know, the first 48, as they say, but in this case, the first few hours are very critical. Dad continues to try to reach Mom by phone. They contact the hair salon again, multiple times, no answer. Her car is nowhere to be found. He also contacts, other people, friends that know Mom and see her quite a bit, and no one has seen or heard from her. Now, in the case of Mom, they have the children that they wanted to have. When they got their daughter, they were good. So no more planned pregnancies for Mom and Dad once they had the daughter. So all was supposed to be done. Now, Mom, on the other hand, apparently has a secret close male friend. He's also married with 3 young children that she sees from time to time. Well, apparently, the times that she sees him is when she's supposedly working late. Now, even worse, the manager and one other co-worker that are her closest friends at the job, they cover for her. And it sounds like, and it's been noted that she's done the same thing for them on the occasion. Now, Dad and the family obviously have no idea that Mom's been doing this. Mom, on the other hand, she meets with a friend to tell him that she's pregnant. Now he goes into an absolute panic and is outraged because mom promised that she could no longer have kids. But she tells him, I am absolutely in love with you, and I want the two of us to do what we talked about after a couple of months and before I start showing, run off together. Even though I wasn't expecting to get pregnant, we did say we would run off together. They both believed in each other when they said we're tired of our marriages and we want to be together. So what we will do is wait a couple months, save up some money. So mom was putting cash aside, and so was he apparently. And they were going to run off together. Now, where things take a turn is her friend met with her strictly to tell her that his wife was receiving a substantial inheritance and that he was not going to leave his family. But what does mom do? She threatens to absolutely expose him. And then everything all of a sudden goes completely dark. Mom lights are out. And she is now on the move. But where? Now, in the meantime, back at home, Dad and the police are fully engaged in efforts to try to locate Mom with every available resource. Now, Dad calls Grandma over, so she can pick up the kids to alleviate the ongoing stress that's going on in the household and get the kids into a safer area, and so they wouldn't have to worry so much. Now, at this point, it's just past midnight, and there's still no sign of Mom, no call, no nothing. Dad and the police go with every possible avenue they can think of to find her. Moments later, an officer called the officer in charge and said, we found the body dumped in a drainage ditch approximately 4 miles from the hair salon. And it appeared to be Mom based on the photos they saw, the hair color, the watch, the clothes, and the shoes she was believed to be wearing when she left for work that morning. Now, the body was badly beaten and suffered a major head injury. Also some injuries around the neck and facial areas. That kind of trauma, as though she was beaten to death and without remorse. Dad is taken to the scene, and once he sees the body and what Mom is wearing, he's immediately able to identify her. The scene is violent, traumatic, and something no one should ever have to see or go through. Now, after a period of time, Dad trying to get him to calm down. He's frantic and not really doing good, very unstable, like a loose cannon about to go off. But after he gets settled down, he gets returned to the home while the police case the crime scene. And that takes a few days. They recover the body and then they get it, to where it needs to be. And forensics and the whole 9 yards are being done. Unfortunately, at this point, the perpetrator left no traces of the evidence at the scene. Police also believe that the perp knows Mom very well and may have lured her to the area to commit this heinous act, but are unclear as to why at this point. Dad, unfortunately, and carefully breaks the news to the family and realizes that plan that he and Mom always relied on and the kids knew from start to finish had been breached in the most violent of ways. Now he's, over the coming days, even more cautious with the kids' lives to the point where there's so much severe anxiety going on and disorder with him that he requires treatment for himself. The kids also require going through counseling, and they're kind of scared because Dad has a rough temper and yells and screams if things are not done a certain way. He's on the kids. He's yelling at his mom. He's just really loose like a cannon. And then when he picks them up from school, he doesn't even want them going out in the front to play. They have to go in the backyard to play. And he sits out there waiting for them to finish playing. And if they're not done in a timely manner, he makes them come inside. And then he locks the house completely down. So he is really gone off the scale. Now, following the autopsy results, Dad gets the worst news he could possibly ever get. He learns that Mom was pregnant, which leads him and the police to believe, okay, this is obviously and possibly the reason why she may have been killed. Police get the DNA testing done on Mom, and a match comes about. Well, at this point, the perpetrator has left the area, but he gets detained and he gets questioned, and he refuses to answer any questions, and he pleads the fifth, but he eventually confesses to the murder. He explains specifically why he killed her, but he didn't mean to do it because he loved her. The irony in this tragedy is that Dad realizes that he actually knows the perpetrator because he is the same attorney that he and Mom used to implement a trust, will, and power of attorney for their family. You know, he's even been by the home several times to meet with them to ensure everything was good. He's met with Dad on a couple of separate occasions as well, you know. And while Dad knew that Mom seemed fond of him, it was never enough to alarm him that Mom chose this particular attorney for romance reasons. I mean, he just did not see anything like that coming. It just was not something he could ever believe. Now, during the court proceedings, the perpetrator thoroughly explained the affair between himself and Mom and their plan to eventually run off together. And then he let the courts know that after learning about his wife's large inheritance, he had a change of heart. He was absolutely never going to leave his wife. He was already very upset and panicked when Mom said, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And then he got frantic and, you need to take care of that because I'm never leaving my family. So Mom, again, said she was going to expose him. And he was not about to let himself be exposed because he has a wife and 3 young kids. And he's thinking about that big fat inheritance that his wife's going to get. And he gets to be a part of that. So he wants nothing to do with Mom and having a kid because, first of all, she was not supposed to be able to have any more kids. So she left him no choice. So he thought he had to do the obvious, and that was get rid of her and try to cover up the crime scene without ever getting caught. But in the end, the plan that the Butler family always relied on, it was badly breached by their own. The mom, the mother of 3, the mom of a very good husband. I mean, she left them behind. Her plan was to eventually scrap her very own family and run off with a gentleman who turned out to be a murderer. So at the end of the day, when you think about your family, you think about the area that you live in. You think about the safety of your family, how much you love your family, how much you love the people in your life. And then a situation happens that you have no control over, and it just blindsides you, especially in a situation like this. You had a father. You had 3 beautiful children. Yeah, they didn't live in the best of areas. Hey, I grew up in a small area that wasn't the best of areas. And I talked about that in a previous episode. You know, living in a small little area called Rayford, North Carolina. No running water. Had to use an outhouse when I was a kid. You grow up in these porous areas, and then especially in areas like the south side of Chicago and Philly and places like that where you have high crime. And it can be really, really violent. Now, they didn't live specifically in the projects, but they lived just right on the edge of it. So imagine your 3 young children hearing gunshots every single day that they're home, every single night that they're home. And then the craziest part is they get used to it because it happens so often. Can you imagine your child or your children getting used to the same thing every single day and every single night that they're home or they're somewhere in the area? Gunshots, sirens, police sirens, emergency sirens, fire department, everything go off in the same exact manner every single day of the week. Not 1 day a week, not 2 days a week, but 7 days a week, and at least probably 5 to 6 days a week minimum. They have to hear this. And you're talking about kids that are beneath the teenage side of the world, having to deal with all this. And it goes on in America and around the world every single day. So moms and dads, there's sometimes where you grow up in areas where it's really not much of a choice, and people might say it's a choice. Oh, you can live anywhere you want to live. You just have to do this, this, and this. Well, that's not always the case when you, unfortunately, living a minority side of the world. It can be very difficult. My parents were not rich. We didn't grow up with a whole lot, but we made do with what we had. And just like this family, they had a plan in place to keep themselves as safe as possible. But the plan was breached. And when something like this happens, it can be the worst thing in the world for a family, especially children, to go through. So with that said, I'm going to close this by saying thank you to all the listeners out there. Continue to subscribe, continue to listen, continue to give me feedback. Anything that you want to do to help me continue to provide these great stories to you. Again, the stories are fiction, but they're based on real life experiences. So I want you to continue to listen, continue to subscribe, and I will take any constructive criticism and feedback. So fire away. I don't worry about that part. Just go ahead and give it to me straight and let me know, because it'll allow me to get better and allow me to give you what you need. Information that's called a plan for you and your family. It doesn't matter who you are, how much you make, if you Shaq and Michael Jordan, or if you me, or if you're somebody in South Africa that don't have a lot, whatever the case may be, rich or poor. Do the best you can to protect you and your family. Now, with that said, please stay tuned. Next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listeners, I'm going to take you into an area where we're going to prepare for severe inclement weather, which can save lives. But for now, that's all, good people. So thanks for listening. God bless. Have a good evening. And always remember, a plan that succeeds is a plan that fulfills one's needs. Thank you and good night.